Buckingham Palace has witnessed coronations, abdications, even wartime bombings. But nothing prepared the gilded corridors for what happened at 9 a.m. yesterday. Cameras clicked, courtiers stiffened, and King Charles III, face composed but eyes blazing with purpose, leaned into the microphone and detonated the royal order of the universe. In a voice that echoed off centuries-old tapestries, he named Princess Beatrice, not Prince William, not even the wildly unpredictable Prince Heir, as Britain's next sovereign. Gasps ricocheted around the room. Hashtags exploded faster than palace footmen could draw breath. If you thought the House of Windsor had exhausted its capacity for drama, buckle up. This isn't a ripple in the royal pond. It's a tidal wave threatening to wipe centuries of protocol clean off the map. But how did we get here? Keep watching, because every twist that follows makes Charles's bombshell look almost tame. It was supposed to be routine. A forward-looking address on the crown's future. Reporters expected bland affirmations, maybe a joke about hummingbirds, perhaps another nod to sustainable farming. Instead, Charles gripped the lectern, thanked his dear son William, then pivoted so sharply half the press gallery missed the moment he uttered the name Beatrice Elizabeth Mary. A single syllable, B, and history lurched sideways. Within minutes, Bye-Bye William trended worldwide. Screens outside the palace replayed the clip on loop. Even tourists clutching Union Jack umbrellas fell silent, mouths forming perfect O's of disbelief. Charles didn't elaborate, didn't offer timelines, didn't field questions. He walked off like a man who just set his signature on an irreversible decree, because in his mind, he had. But declarations are one thing. Centuries-old statutes are another. Under British law, the throne isn't a family heirloom you can casually regift. The Act of Settlement 1701 freezes succession along Protestant bloodlines, while the Succession to the Crown Act 2013 finally scrapped male preference primogeniture, but emphatically didn't grant monarchs a pick-your-favorite option. For Charles's proclamation to carry legal weight, Parliament must rewrite the very bones of monarchy. Insiders whisper that he's already courting sympathetic MPs with phrases like modern flexibility and future-proofing the crown. Skeptics call it a constitutional heist, wearing biodegradable wrapping paper. Either way, Britain hasn't stared down a succession crisis this brazen since Edward VIII traded his crown for Wallis Simpson's hand in 1936. And we all know how that ended. With a reluctant, crisis-scarred George VI and a nation questioning everything it thought immutable. Yet, legislation is only half the story. The real fault line runs straight through the royal family itself. Publicly, Charles and William have projected a united front since Queen Elizabeth's passing. Privately, courtiers paint a darker canvas. William advocates a sleek, cost-trimmed monarchy. Fewer grace and favor residences, tighter budgets, less bowing and curtsying. Charles, who waited longer than any heir in British history, wants his reign bathed in full ceremonial wattage. Their visions collided in endless strategy meetings, each side leaking strategic snippets to pliant tabloids. Then there's raw popularity. Latest YouGov figures show William adored by 71% of Britons, comfortably eclipsing Charles's own numbers. For a king sensitive to being forever less charismatic, watching his heir dominate headlines must sting like sea spray on fresh sunburn. Elevating Beatrice serves two purposes: sideline an overshadowing son, and remind Britain that Charles, not William, wears the crown. Which begs the question, why Beatrice, of all people? Princess Beatrice has spent much of her 30-something years quietly clocking in at a software company, championing dyslexia awareness, and dodging paparazzi wildfire aimed at her father, Prince Andrew. Ninth in line, she wasn't expected to do more than wave politely from balcony edges. Yet royal biographers have long noted that Buckingham strategists keep Beatrice and her sister Eugenie on ice for future roles, just in case the monarchy needs fresh faces untarnished by constant scrutiny. Beatrice's clean slate image is precisely why Charles sees her as a lifeline. She's dutiful, scandal-light, and unburdened by the public's weary familiarity. Most importantly, she's fiercely loyal to her Uncle Charles, insiders say. A loyalty forged when he shielded the York sisters during their father's Epstein-linked disgrace. Rewarding that allegiance now is both personal and political. It telegraphs that the king prizes steadfast supporters over headline-hungry heirs. Of course, none of that matters if the law stands in his way. So Charles is playing three-dimensional chess on the floors of Westminster. Draft memos circulating inside Whitehall, we're told, outline an exceptional heir clause allowing a reigning monarch with two-thirds parliamentary consent to bypass the usual line under conditions of national interest. Constitutional purists are aghast. Reformists whisper that any law flexible enough to survive the 21st century must breathe, standing between Charles and his dream. A House of Commons already bruised by cost-of-living crises and weary of royal controversy. MPs who champion food bank funding can ill afford backlash for indulging near futile experiments. Yet lobbyists note that if polls swing toward Beatrice or William's camp fumbles a PR ball, wavering backbenchers may fold. Charles, sources say, is prepared to address Parliament personally, evoking duty, destiny, even climate stewardship to frame Beatrice as a bridge to tomorrow. Risky? Absolutely. But a king with cancer-era urgency, remember, Charles confirmed treatment only months ago, may trade caution for legacy at supersonic speed. Meanwhile, inside palace walls, relationships are hemorrhaging. Prince William reportedly stormed out of a private audience, branding the plan an act of betrayal. Catherine worries aloud about what the upheaval means for George, Charlotte, and Louis. Kids raised believing they'd one day shoulder the crown. Across the Atlantic, Harry reacts with textbook ambiguity. Half gratified that William's feeling the sting he knows so well, half horrified that the institution he once fled could tear itself apart. Then there's Andrew. Cheeks flushed, newfound relevance coursing through veins once chilled by scandal. For him, Beatrice's promotion is reputational CPR. Eugenie, always the diplomatic sister, texts cautious congratulations while preparing for the media cyclone. Queen Camilla straddles impossible lines, publicly clapping for her husband's bold vision, privately begging father and son to share a room, a whiskey, a shred of compromise. Outside the palace gates, the public's verdict is swift and brutally divided. By nightfall, Piccadilly billboards flicker alternating slogans: "Long live Queen Beatrice" and "William, we stand with you." Street interviews reveal a kingdom split. Older Britons grumble about meddling kings. Gen Z TikTokers meme Beatrice into anime-style coronation fan art. Tabloids baptize the saga the Windsor War. Online sentiment trackers show William supporters drowning Beatrice's camp 2-1. But the princess's numbers surge each hour she stays silent. Proof that mystery can outshine monarchy fatigue. Across the Commonwealth, Republican leaders seize the moment. In Australia, MPs float a referendum date. In Jamaica, activists tweet that a made-up monarchy can't decide Jamaican identity. The Guardian warns that the crown suddenly looks more vulnerable than ever, echoing op-eds from Ottawa to Auckland. And that vulnerability raises the stakes for what happens next. Charles's gamble is audacious, but not unprecedented in spirit. History is littered with rulers who bent succession to personal will. Henry VIII upended church and country to secure a male heir. Tsar Paul I reversed his mother's succession laws to block female rulers. Even Napoleon crowned himself emperor to rewrite destiny. Some changed history, others unleashed chaos. If Parliament consents, Beatrice must transform overnight from low-profile tech exec into heir in waiting. Every sneeze will headline tabloids. Every slip will embolden Republicans. Should lawmakers refuse, Charles risks the scorn of appearing out of touch. Another aging monarch scrambling for relevance while voters tighten belts. Either way, the House of Windsor walks a razor wire suspended above public patience. As midnight struck, palace aides hinted that Princess Beatrice will speak within 48 hours, perhaps to accept, perhaps to decline, perhaps to redefine the very idea of what it means to be an heir in 2025. Cameras are already trained on St. James's Palace. Demonstrators queue behind barricades with placards for both sides. Charles's announcement detonated like a flash bomb, illuminating fractures long concealed beneath royal varnish. Is he a visionary modernizer, or a sovereign so obsessed with carving an unrepeatable legacy that he's willing to gamble the entire crown? The next chapter depends on three fronts moving at once: a king pressing parliament, a prince fighting for his birthright, and a princess deciding whether to step into history's hottest spotlight or quietly extinguish it. The monarchy may have survived wars, divorces, and decades of scandal, but never before has its future hinged on a single statement that hasn't even been spoken yet. When Beatrice finally breaks her silence, Britain will know whether the crown's newest chapter begins with harmony or heralds the day the scepter slipped forever from royal hands. Stay tuned, because this battle for the throne is only just beginning.